If you are a softball or baseball player and you want more power, faster bat speed, and higher exit velocity, Swing Dynamics is the program for you. Rob Cruz has just released his Swing Dynamics Bat Speed Training Program. The system comes with 4 custom Pro Maple bats, online training videos, a mobile app, pregame, preseason, and off-season bat speed programs, and more. To learn more about Swing Dynamics, log on to www.complete.game. That's www.complete.game.
What's up, everybody? This is your host and your co-host, Rob Cruz and Rick Pauly, back with another episode of the podcast, Transcending Sport. And we are going to dig in. Today is a special day because it's the first day of competition that I can think of, actually. I mean, I think it is the first day of competition for women's college softball. And there's some teams down in Clearwater this weekend. I didn't go, obviously. But we're here and we're going to talk a little bit of ball. We're going to talk about what's going on in the development world, on it, what I'm doing lately with the hitting side and stuff. And hopefully Rick will share some of his secrets on the pitching side. And just talk about, like, what's going on in softball and how we feel about it and chat it up a little bit. What's going on, Rick?
Well, Mr. Rob Cruz, Professor Cruz, it's good to be here again today. I know we're going to have fun, a good chat. You and I were just chatting on the side before we got on here about how both of us, what we knew last year, we've progressed so far. There's so much new and interesting and intriguing and information out there in our world that, we like to chat about it on something like this little blog that we're doing here. Give people a little insight. We can't give you all the detail. We'd have to probably shoot you otherwise, but give you enough to pique your interest so that maybe, you get curious like we are and start investigating some of this stuff.
Yep. So I think, it's funny you said that because, like, I was having a conversation yesterday with one of my certified coaches in my certification program. And he said, and this guy's been around me for about at least 15, maybe 20 years. He's been around me, like, bringing his daughter in. I've been working with his teams, so we have a deeper relationship than I have with most people. Yeah. I've worked with his daughter, I've worked with his son, and we just have that relationship. So anyway, he goes, you said something the other day that I've never heard you say. And I'm like, yeah, because I changed.
Yeah.
So, and that happens a lot. Like I change my mind based on new information. And a big part of my success is not being married to a particular philosophy.
Here's the way we did it back in the day. Here's how I was taught.
Right. And the thing is, like, I might be doing something now then I'm probably not going to be doing that same thing next year or teaching that next year. I'm going to be like, I got a better way to say that. I got a better way that I can do it. And I know that. And I keep myself open to new information so that I can improve upon what I'm doing this year. Hopefully next year I'm not doing what I'm doing this year. Hopefully there's more information and I get smarter and new things are revealed to me. Hopefully. So it's like, dude, we growing around here. If you're not changing, you're not growing.
Yeah, it's kind of like when somebody does a sales pitch or trying to sell their business or whatever, and the old thing that they all talk about is, I got all these sales out here in the future, and they call it, that's the hockey stick effect, right? Uh-huh. Okay. Well, I think the same thing in our sport. I think in the last 5 years, I have probably learned and modified my teachings more than I did the previous 20. Okay. And it started down here kind of on the blade of the hockey stick, and now I'm starting to go up, 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 up. And it just, the mountain kind of keeps getting steeper. It keeps getting higher. I'm not sure there's an end to that hockey stick. Curious. I think we might have talked about this on our last podcast, but I'm into some new stuff right now, and I've got about 5 things that I want to get into as soon as I find some time to get into them. And they're way up on the top of the hockey stick here. Makes
So,
you a better coach.
yep.
Um, you know what else I got to throw this out because I just said something that tweaked something in my brain is,
Mm-hmm.
in your when you're working with hitters, which hitter makes you a better coach? I,
Mm.
I'll tell you which pitcher makes me the better coach. It's the one that has got a lot of flaws and you find a way to fix them. If a kid walks in the door and she's throwing 70 miles an hour, get the heck out of her way. Don't try to fix her. But if you got a kid that looks like she should throw 70 and she's only throwing 55, that's the kid that's going to make you a better coach. You're going to dig
That's
deep
a
into your arsenal.
Rick. That's a really good question, and I'm gonna tell you this. Right, you ready for this one? Because as you're talking, I'm hearing you, but I'm like looking at me, and I'm like, you know who makes me better? There's a couple of different types of students that make me better.
Yeah.
The younger one, I say number one would be the younger kids. If you can get in the cage often enough with a 7-year-old and an 8-year-old, you have to be able to really effectively
Communicate.
true. If you
Yeah.
can't, if you're not a really good communicator for a 7-year-old, because if you could teach it to a 7-year-old, you could teach it to anybody. But just because you
Yeah.
can work, just because you can talk to an 18-year-old or a 16-year-old, like an advanced kid, you're probably not going to be as good at getting through to the tens. And in my long career of teaching, I've done programs where we used to have this program called Born to Play, and it was
Yeah.
literally a program for 2.5 to 4-year-olds, complete with obstacle courses and throwing different color balls into different color hoops and
Yeah.
really good cues. So that's my first student. And then my second student that makes me better are the kids who are not fast learners. Some kids will pick it up quick and like, okay, they got it, and they make the adjustment automatically, right? But some kids, they don't comprehend the
What
same
about
way.
what about this kid here, Rob? What about this kid where
What kid?
you push over here because they got a problem here. You push here and something pops out over here, and now
Yeah,
you got
that
to
kid
push
too.
here, and
And then some
it,
of
it
yeah.
just
So you
yeah,
get all
pop, pop, pop,
you
pop.
get all types of kids that have different levels of how quickly they can learn,
Yeah.
or what is their strongest learning modality. And in order for us to become those master teachers, we have to be able to understand that learning modalities are a thing. Some people may have a stronger learner modality than someone else. So, for example, some kids are. I had a kid a couple of days ago, came in very auditory. That's rare that a kid is audio, by the way, where you could just talk to them and tell them and they
Uh-huh.
can get it. Very rare. But those
Yeah.
kids are usually your high academic kids. They're going to probably go to Princeton or some Ivy League school, and they have that ability to see your words. They can visualize your words in their mind's eye with at a higher level than most other kids. And then you have kids who are, I think everybody's visual to an extent, right?
Yeah.
Some kids are more visual than others, but everybody's visual, I believe, right? And then you have those kids who are just 100% feel. They're very kinesthetic. And if you can't get that kid to feel it, you will never go. And if you know that, it's like, okay, I'm not going to waste a whole lot of time talking to you because that's not going to help you by me talking to you. Go over there. Here's a drill that I want you to do, or exercise that I want you to do. And I usually try to create, because I'm really kind of getting away from drills as solutions, and I'm using exercises, or what I like to call, I don't even have a word for it, but like I'll create a constraint and get a kid to complete a
Like
specific task.
an external cue.
It could be a cue, it could be something external, and I'll say, okay, you can only do this.
Yeah.
You can only hit this pitch to that side of the cage, and I'll let them work through it and they'll figure out how to self-organize to make that happen. Because if I start talking mechanics with that
Yeah.
kid, she's done. They're done. So for me, I have to be creative enough to allow the student to have enough freedom of movement so they can work through it and find the movement pattern that they need. They have to be able to find it themselves. Because if I'm guiding them too much, it doesn't stick. It doesn't become a permanent transition into the proper movement pattern that I want them to have.
Yeah, what you're talking about is really interesting. I got a case in hand right now. Sarah and I are working with I'm talking high level pitcher.
Yeah.
And of course, you know me, I'm going to slap my 4D motion sensors on her and do some motor preference and all this kind of stuff, you know. The kid doesn't talk that language. She's what I call a feel pitcher. So I'm talking to her in metric terms and her eyes are crossed. And she's, I don't understand what do you mean? I don't know. I don't feel that, you know? And I turned to Sarah because Sarah is a feel pitcher. I said, Sarah, you know what I'm trying to say because you've listened to me enough years. Tell her what am I trying to tell her? It's almost like Sarah is a translator.
Is an interpreter.
Sarah will say something to him. Oh my God. All the light bulbs go on. The kid's pitching, she's smiling, she's happy. And I'm thinking, wow, I thought I was helping her out with all these metrics. Giving her all this facts and data.
I think you know what happens though sometimes, especially with this generation, as coaches, like it's very different because the metrics are for us as coaches. And the metrics tell us where we need to go with this hitter. But the metrics don't always tell them. And in some instances, it probably shouldn't. Like some kids, I'm like, you don't really need to see this data. I mean, it's really cool if you want to come look at it. Like, it's like, oh, this is cool. But like, you don't really need to dig too deep into this. And it's funny because I know in Major League Baseball, particularly the minor leagues and in the developmental process in Major League Baseball, the guys do like kind of like an intake with the hitters, and they say, okay, what are some of the things when we start doing video assessments and we start collecting the data from the Rapsodos and all of the technology that we have? How do you want to get it? Do you want us to send you the files, and or do you want us to sit with you and go over it? Do you want it same day? Do you want it next day? And they really get really into the psychology of how to present the information, if we present it at all. Because some guys in pro baseball don't even want it. It's a distraction for them. Some guys want it a certain way. Hey, give me the data. I got my guy. I'll send it to him. I got my own guy. You know what I'm saying? Like, so like everybody's really, really different, you know? And so I think I started doing that now with my kids. I'm like, hey, you want to see it? Because the kids who want to see it, they're going to run over, let me look, you know? But I also want to set the tone and the stage of how I want them to digest it. Because a lot of kids are digesting the technology or the results of technology as, what's my score? Was that good? Did I do good? And for us, it's not about that. It's about maybe one, we need a baseline. Maybe two, we just want to see where you're at. Where are you? So we can know where we should go. Should we stay here? Should we go somewhere with it? And just because your bat speed is, I'm just going to use bat speed. Just because your bat speed is 61 doesn't mean you need to get to 67 to be better. Maybe 61 is your sweet spot of what speed you should be at, and you can be on time and you can have a lot of control of the barrel with 61. But if I got you to 67, you wouldn't have the same amount of control of the barrel. You wouldn't have the same bat to ball skills at 67 just because you just wouldn't. It's just not in your swing DNA. You know what I mean?
Yeah, we have the same thing in pitching.
Yeah.
I love to measure a kid's drive speed off the pitching rubber. How fast do you move? What's your linear velocity coming off the pitching rubber?
Hmm. Hmm.
And so, man, we got all excited when a kid's over 5 meters per second. And yet you start pushing a kid, let's say she was 4.2 meters per second. Now she's at 5. She may not throw better. Her body may not be able to handle that body mass, weight, speed at that higher, linear velocity.
But you
May
know what
not be able
else?
to handle it.
You know what else too? It's a different rhythm.
Yeah. Timing,
The
oh,
the,
you
the,
bet.
the rhythm changes, and a lot of what we
Yeah.
do, what people kind of don't realize, I think, I'm mostly looking at rhythmical execution. Can this kid execute a rhythm? What is their natural rhythm? Back in 2011, I spent some time with some really freaking smart people. They were in a whole other sport. They were in NASCAR training.
Yeah.
Italian company, Italian technology company. The people, and actually the family owns Formula One racing. And they're really into technology. And I got an opportunity to rent an office for $1,000 a month in their headquarters, in their New York headquarters, in their USA
Yeah.
headquarters, which was in New York, just to be a freaking fly on the wall, dude, and learn little stuff. Like, and a lot of the little things that I learned from them, to this day, nobody's doing it. This was 2011. To this day, nobody's even on that level that I've come across.
Yeah.
Like, it's really good stuff. Some stuff we talked about. It's some stuff that I've implemented, and I've implemented it subtly into like what I do. But sometimes I'll go back and listen to my notes, because took a lot of notes from them, and I have a lot of audio notes from just conversations, and I'll go back and listen to it every now and then. I'm like, oh, that was good. That was a bar. How did I miss that? And I'm like,
Yeah.
so I like to go back and look at things that I've written down and things that I have. So I think and plus, when you read something, when you've grown, you're reading it differently than you read it when you were 5 years ago, 8 years ago, 9 years ago, 10 years ago. If you go back and read some of
Yeah.
that stuff, you know what else I did, Rick, recently? I went back and looked at some of my hitters from like 2008 that played at like in Power 5 or whatever. I'm like, what were they doing? Am I far away from that? Is it that much different? It's actually not. It's actually not that different. In terms of like
Interesting.
how they got there. That's what it comes down. Like how you like it hitting is like how you gonna get there. Because and I know that pitchers understand where hard contact happens. We hope. Right? And if a pitcher
Yeah.
understands where the hardest hit balls are hit, what that space is, if the pitchers understand that, hopefully the hitters understand that. And they know where they have to get to and where they have to be good. And what part of that zone they have to be good. Because the best pitchers are moving it through that space. And I think as hitters, we got to get our hitters to kind of maybe like win the space more. So I've been talking a
Yeah.
lot about winning the space and direction
Cool.
and winning the space. Where's the energy coming from? Where's the energy going? I've been talking a lot more like that these days, and I'm not talking about a whole lot of things that they're not going to do anyway. Like they're not going
Well,
to change their
you know
mechanics.
what?
They're
The
not going
other
to fix their
day,
mechanics. Yeah.
you're tweaking my memory. The other day, remember we were chatting,
Yep.
and we were talking about energy, just what you just said. But we were talking about some things I know I'm doing them. I think you're going to start checking it out more closely, and that is the power of deceleration. Um, and I told you I've been studying this guy, Dr. Stuart McGill. He's kind of the top spine guy in the athletic world. And of course, the spine is supported by the core, and it's all about the core. And it has to do with, the whole proximal distal thing. Okay. Your spine is the most proximal thing on your body, it's the center of your body. Everything that goes and radiates away from the spine becomes what we call distal. But the more proximal things control the distal, your appendages. So I've been doing a lot of work on a thing that he terms, it's called pulsing. And it's basically when and how quick, how fast can you fire your core muscles to stiffen them. He uses the word stiffen, and I guess I kind of like it. It's kind of like layman's terminology. And I've been doing a lot of work with kids lately on timing when they really, really, really fire their core, when they pulse.
Yeah.
And what I'm finding out is, of course, I'm going to have my 4D motion metric stuff on these kids. I'll do a before and I do an after. And what I see almost on every kid is their deceleration rates increase. I'm talking the deceleration of the pelvis, the chest, the upper arm, the lower arm, and a couple things happen. You get a kid to decelerate faster, of course, got to be at the right time. You're more than likely going to increase pitch speed. Almost more importantly, you're really going to make a big improvement in their location consistency, because you've taken away a lot of moving body parts that give you variation in how and when you let go of the ball. So it's something that I think is I don't think it's appreciated enough, at least in my sport, in fast pitch pitching. And when I think I know a little bit more than I do know today, I'll probably be putting some materials out on how to apply it to fast pitch pitching. And I think it'll be of high value. Of course, I'm biased, so I'm going to think of that.
So
What are you doing in the hitting world?
So I think you touched on some really good points, and I wrote some things down because I don't want to forget to address the counterpart on the hitting side of what you're saying. So like, I think when we okay, so I'll give you an example. When I look at a swing, because of who I am and my background, I'm not looking at the what. I'm looking at the why. I'm looking at why do they move that way? I'm not looking at, oh, they move that way. And then even within how they're moving, I see the movement, and the questions that I'm asking myself are, because I'm trying to look at it without my biases, my own personal swing biases, blocking me helping that kid.
That's a tough thing to do too.
It is tough. It's so hard. It's so
to
hard
not be biased.
It's so hard to not be biased.
Yeah.
Which is where technology helps us, because technology is not biased. So because we're all going to have swing biases naturally. So I try to look at the why, because there's a psychology of speed. There's the speed. When you talk about pulsing, right? You said use the word pulsing. There's a psychology of why kids are not fast. Some kids are not fast because their personality is passive. They have a lot of fear. They have a lot of doubt. They have a lot of uncertainty because they lack the intentionality that they need to be fast, and they just care too much. The best hitters don't care. I'm turning loose. If I miss, I miss.
Yeah.
And that's how their brain works, though. So do we recruit kids that if I'm a college coach, do I recruit kids that already have that, or do I get kids that have potential and try to change them? You ain't changing them. You ain't changing them. Chances are you're not changing them. And
at a later age, I would say it's really, really the chance to change diminishes with age.
You got
dramatically.
It's really going to be. You don't. First of all, you don't even spend enough time with them to change them. Like I spend enough time with kids to change them, because I don't have restrictions on how much time I can spend with them in a practice environment.
Right.
They have too many restrictions at the collegiate level. Like at the pro level, it's different. You have unlimited time, right? And pro level kids are pros here. They're pros in their mind. They're not pros by status. They have a pro approach, or an elite approach, or an elite approach. So when you talked about decel, right? The decel stuff, we have to move. I think it starts here with softball, right? It starts with the philosophy of deceleration. Let's educate people on the importance of it, because when they hear the word deceleration, they think slow down. Why would I want to slow down? That's what people think first, right? Naturally. So
It is, and
right,
they've
naturally.
probably never opened a physics book.
Right.
Yeah.
So they're looking at it based on their knowledge. They're looking at it based on their knowledge. So the first thing we have to do is, and that's why podcasts like this are important, because we get to dig deeper. People are not distracted. They're in their cars. They're working out. They're walking the
Yeah.
dog when they listen to a podcast, right? So it's like,
Well,
I get to
like
dig
I
deep
say,
with
Rob,
Rob and Rick, right?
I think we are all guilty or have been guilty of the only thing we look at is acceleration. How fast, how fast, how fast, how fast,
Because we're looking at the what
which
and
is
not the
great.
how. We're looking at the what and not the
That's
why
the
and the how.
that's
Yeah.
that's the creation of energy. It's the deceleration that transfers the energy, and you've got to transfer it through your whole, call it kinetic chain.
So the other part of it is, the reason why we know that is because we've used technology that has shown us what we should look for.
Yeah.
People can't see that with the naked eye. You can't see deceleration with the naked eye if you don't know to look for it. So because people have not been exposed
I
to
don't know how you could see it.
You can't. So you can measure it with 3D motion capture, and because we have an advantage, we've used 3D motion capture extensively, so we understand. Because I'm going to break it down again, and I've broken it down in prior podcasts, but I'm going to say this, right? When 4D motion showed me the numbers from the MLB combine for the pre-draft evaluations,
Yep.
and we were able to see and I like to call this, I'm going to call this pelvic control. I'm sorry, let me back that up. I'm calling it, with my certified coaches, we're calling it pelvic integrity. And that's encompassing pelvic speed, pelvic direction, and pelvic control. We got to have all three of these things, and we have to talk about these things with our hitters. Because if you ask 100 hitters, where does power come from? 100 hitters are going to say it comes from the legs. 100 hitters are going to say it comes from the hips. That's what they're going to say. And I would argue, go get anybody. Go get them. I will show them in 3D motion capture that Major League Baseball players who are optimizing their hips the best of anyone are not getting their power from their legs. Their legs have learned how to make their legs the anchor, and they're keeping their pelvic speed in terms of degrees, rotational speed, like how many degrees per second they're turning. They're keeping it in a range. They're keeping it in a slower range. And then the minor league guys were turning their hips so fast because they think it's turn your hips. And then the energy transfer that you just talked about doesn't happen with the right speed increases from pelvic to chest, from chest to arms, from arms to bat, because the pelvis is supposed to set it off. And the best Major League Baseball players are only turning their hips 30 degrees or less sometimes.
Oh, you mean they're not swinging and facing home plate when they're done, huh?
So all these people talking about belly button facing the pitcher, go somewhere with that.
Yeah.
Go somewhere. Because that's not what the data is telling us. That's not what the numbers are telling us.
Yeah.
So the pelvis has to be able to stop early enough in the swing sequence so that they can decelerate, so that the chest, arms, and back can do what they have to do. That's
so the chest is kind of dependent on the hip.
I want to go into
deceleration.
I want to go into chest, because I'm gonna tell you right now, I have been obsessed with chest, back, upper back, lead shoulder, rear shoulder as the focal point with hitters lately. And the results that I'm having with players who had very, very, very low level bat to ball skills, I'm getting better results in 5-10 minutes. It's crazy, and I'm obsessed with it. And I'm gonna tell you, I'm gonna let you talk, but I'm gonna tell you a story about how I kind of stumbled onto it a little bit, and then I'll show you and I'll talk about what I'm doing now. What you got?
What do I have?
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to give you an example of how finite I think I'm getting down on this thing, and that is we've got one of the most key decelerations is the lower arm in pitching, because the ball is attached right here to your lower arm, basically your hand.
Yeah.
I'll give you some numbers. I'll have a kid throw a pitch and I'll measure it 4D, and it'll decelerate 250,000 degrees per second squared. And that's, wow, really good. Great pitch. Ball went right where it should have. Okay. You might throw the next pitch and the ball doesn't go where it's supposed to, and it's another mile or two slower. And if I had the sensors on here, here's what I can tell you is if you had the same peak deceleration rate, but just before she let go, this upper arm, this humerus, slipped off her ribs. And so now her deceleration rate went from 250,000, it went down to something like 110,000 degrees per second squared.
Damn.
Now, you think about that, and that's in a matter of a millisecond. Okay, and that's how fine or finite this whole acceleration deceleration is. You miss it by a millisecond, and it's amazing. I mean,
so there's a
I
timing.
can,
There's a timing of when decel should happen. Then
the peak deceleration would be exactly when the ball's coming out of your hand, and if it happens before then, and then it starts to increase the deceleration rate, you're not going to get the same performance. And and we're splitting hairs here. We're talking, this is pretty high level stuff. But your kids that can't break 50 miles an hour, their peak deceleration happened way before they let go of the ball, and they're almost into acceleration instead of deceleration. So they're just not transferring energy.
So
it's pretty cool.
I think they're not transferring energy with efficiency, because it's funny, because when I'm looking at here,
right,
people, I'm like, okay, everybody's moving energy. Some people are just moving it better than others. Some people are getting it from the right place and then taking it in the right direction. But and in your point, they realize how they should be timing it. They realize the timing of when do I get to, and we call, because you call it pulsing. And in the past, when I learned biomechanics back in like the late 90s, we were talking biomechanics a lot. Back when we got laughed at about talking biomechanics, we called it gas pedal. Like when are you hitting the gas pedal, and what is that timing of?
And
gas
it's
pedal?
when do you hit the brakes?
Right.
You got to hit the gas, but then you got to hit the brakes.
Then you got to hit the brakes. Right. So it's like gas to brakes, and we had this thing called when I was learning biomechanics back then. And I never really fully understood it because it was never really explained to me. At least maybe I don't know. Maybe I went to the bathroom during that part. Maybe I missed it. But we had this thing that we called it straw paw. Straw paw. And I'm gonna break
never
down
heard of that one.
This is how I learned it. This is how I learned deceleration back in 1998. I'll never forget it. And but I didn't know that that's what I was learning, because they didn't use the word deceleration. At least I didn't comprehend it.
Yeah.
So when the hitter's front foot lands and heel strike happens, right? Heel strike gets down on the front foot. There's a slight up movement that we make up. And it's fast and it's short and it stops before it starts almost.
Yeah.
And we had sound connected to that. and we got the hitters to make the sound of the sipping out of a straw, like. So when it happened, it'll be heel strike, and that was the stop.
I've been working on that too, Rob.
Have you?
Here's what I find.
Okay.
Oh, well, it's your breathing.
Yeah.
So, I mean, everybody, before they're going to exert some effort, they breathe in and they hold their breath. Okay. And that little, some people it's, but
some people it's,
that's your core firing and decelerating the hips and the shoulders. It's forcing the air out of your lungs.
And that's
for you college coaches,
yep.
Yeah. So for you college coaches that get a pitcher in and the kid has a grunt and you're saying, no, none of my kids are going to grunt. Well, you're hurting that kid. That grunt is good. Okay. Now you don't need a Monica Seles scream, but it's a, yeah.
Right. So we were
the deceleration, the pulsing causes that air to just explode out of your lungs.
And I'm gonna take it a step further. We used to have this thing where we would do like in like 2003, 2005. We were doing this stuff early, but way back in then. Where we would have the kids we would say, okay, we're gonna do a grunt round.
Oh yeah.
We're doing a whole grunt round on this next bucket of balls. It's grunt round. And it was really about the timing of the grunt. And if you ask a kid to do a grunt round, if you're a hitting coach or whatever you are, or a pitching coach, we're going to do a grunt round, they will know when to grunt. And when the grunt happens, that's the pulsing. That's the straw pull. They're going to know when to grunt. And if they know when to grunt, they're timing the breath pattern where we're releasing the energy, and that's how energy is kind of transferred. I think people
it is amazing.
People underestimate the power of the breath and understanding how people breathe. And we have this thing, some people are reverse breathers. And I'm not going to get into breath, but we could, but I'm not. But there are people who are reverse breathers, and you can retrain them within like 5 or 10 minutes to retrain the sequencing of how their breathing works in terms of like, is the diaphragm expanding or is the diaphragm contracting?
Yeah.
And then but some people their diaphragm is going out as they're breathing in, and their diaphragm should be going in as they're breathing in. And we call them reverse breathers.
Yeah.
And a lot of breathing.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Sarah and I do these clinics. We're heading out tomorrow to do one in Minnesota.
Yeah.
And this is a kind of a trademark of our clinic. We do it every clinic. We have a pull together drill. We might have, let's say we got 30 girls in the clinic, and we line them up in 4 rows of girls, 4 lines. Little bitty girls in the front, sort of tall, really, really tall in the back row.
Yeah.
And there might be, 8 or 10 kids in each row. And then we've shown them this drill we call pull together. And I'm going to show them, I'm going to say, this is high energy. It's such high energy, it should make you grunt. So we have a grunt contest. What line? And we make the little ones go first, and then next, and the next, and the bigs are in the back. And I'll tell you what, it's really interesting because almost every time the little kids win the contest. Okay. And you want to know why? I think it's because the girls in the back, they're older, and they think if they grunt, they'll never get a boyfriend or something. But the little girls win every time. And when you watch them, and I tell the parents, you watch when your kid does this pull together drill with a grunt, mechanically, it'll be the best she's ever looked, because we don't have a ball in their hand when they do it.
Right.
So mechanically, it's the best they ever will look. It's kind of cool.
Yeah. So that's my little thing, going back to my history of how I learned how to teach. Like I actually, it's funny because I laugh when people just, I don't laugh, but I get it. Like, just because I played baseball doesn't mean I'm qualified to teach baseball. It helps that I played.
Yeah,
but
exactly.
It doesn't qualify me to teach. So I actually learned how to teach. And for some of you guys out there, and a big part of my coach certification program is not giving people the information, because I think we all can get the information. And so it's not about knowledge about, it's knowledge of. Because a lot of people are focusing on what should I teach, but the better coaches are focusing on how do I teach it. And that's what separates master coach from someone else. Not what should I be teaching. That's part of it. But how should I be teaching the what is what the emphasis should be
Well,
on.
that goes way back to, you started earlier and said when you're working with a 4 or 5 year old, you gotta tailor your communication to that level kid, and then you hopefully as you move up in age, you should be able to put a little more technical knowledge into your speech.
Yep.
You got to be careful though. You can't if you get yourself a feel girl.
I mean,
you got to be careful with the technical stuff.
Yeah, I think as I've gotten better, I've gotten less technical. I can get technical with the best of them if we need to, but it's rare that I have to, unless I just want to flex, unless I just want to do like a knowledge flex and be like, hey, look, I know stuff. I mean, so what? Everybody knows stuff, but are kids getting better? I mean, that's what it comes down to. And I don't think the technical stuff makes kids better unless that kid's on that level. Like if I got a lot of, and I do work with a lot of Ivy League type kids and NESCAT kids and kids who are very cerebral and kids who just need to really understand how it works. But a lot of kids don't really care. They just want to hit the ball. Coach, help me hit the ball. So I think, but I think it's important that I know that I know the technical aspects of it, so that I can, so that I can like a good chef understands what spices and how much of spices to put in the food. But I'm not telling my people that when I'm feeding people, I'm like, hey, guess what? I put this much cayenne pepper in it. I put this much, black garlic in it. They don't care. This tastes good. That's all that matters. When you're feeding people, when you're serving, when you're serving people, like you're gonna have to have the knowledge to make sure that you're serving them correctly. But they don't have to know all the nuances and all the ins and outs of how you arrived at the product or the service. So I think that's notable.
Wow. Man, fun conversation today, huh?
intense. A lot to think about. A lot to think about. So, because you brought up proximal and distal, right? And I think, and I want to go into this. I want to go into this shoulder direction thing, right? And I want people to try this. I want you to try this. I'm not wrong. So last May, some of my college kids came home. And I was on the verge of really changing some things that I've said out loud. And before I start talking about stuff that I'm on the verge of getting ready to start teaching, I won't say it out loud to anybody until I'm sure that I'm onto something. And then I'll try.
Yeah, I got a bunch of those.
And then I'll try.
You don't want to just. I call it a sample size of 1.
Yeah.
You want to have a pretty good sample size before you start trying to show how smart you are.
Yeah. So I'm very careful because I don't want to mess people up with misinformation.
Yeah.
So when the college kids came home, and these are kids that I've trained for 7-8 years. They can finish my sentences, most of them, right? So they know they know what I'm gonna. They know where they know their own evolution. They're smart. They know the swing. They know themselves, right? So I'm like, And that's funny because I recorded it. So what I'll do in the show notes, if you guys are watching this podcast, in the show notes, I'm going to put 2 YouTube links of the actual recording from last spring when I first said it out loud. Now, since then, I'm able to articulate it a lot better because I've said it more and I've had time to digest it and tweak things that were a little rough around the edges in how I present it. But the bottom line was that I believe that because I wanted kids to start taking the mental emphasis off of legs and hips and putting it on the upper body because that's what's closer to the bat.
Yep.
It's a lot more proximal to the core here than me going, turn my legs. Like, really? When you think about that, it doesn't even make any freaking sense when you really think about it. And I'm like, so it's funny, and you got to watch the video. But so what I'm doing now, like what I'm obsessed with right now is we're loading. And if you have the video version of this podcast, I'm going to go ahead and change my orientation so you see me and not 2 of us on the screen. If I'm loading my swing, I'm going to load it with the front shoulder. So it's this. That's the load. It's a counter rotation. Front shoulder is the loading. Back shoulder is delivering. Back shoulder is direction. And that's where I'm at. And the results that I'm getting right now with kids that it's been taking me a long time to get a new kid to get the feel of it. And you know, kids want to come in and they want to do their swing. I'm like, look, if you just trust me and you spend 30 days on this, you will crush. But if you want to come in here, you just want to swing, it might take you. It's like kids that come in and just want to throw. They want to show you their 9 pitches that they have.
Yeah.
And you're like, no, can you just throw a freaking fastball, please?
No, let's get back here and work on something that makes a difference for you. Yeah.
So and when the back shoulder is the thing that's directing path and energy, those bat to ball skills, or those kids that lack bat to ball skills and didn't really understand how do I get my bat to that space where the hardest balls are actually hit, it's a different type of cue. It's a very effective cue.
Yeah.
And then guess what happens with the legs? The legs are going to do what they're going to do anyway. We're just not going to focus on them. They're still a part of it. I'm not saying no legs. I'm saying we're taking the focus and shifting it to somewhere else. Because
something closer to the bat.
Something close to the bat. Bingo.
There you go.
That's it.
Yeah.
That's all I'm saying. And I think now I'm at the point where I've gotten really good at communicating it over the past several months. Because the key is not that I know that I'm right with this, is that the key is, can I effectively communicate it so that it can resonate with some of these kids? And that's where I'm at now with it. And I'm having a great time. I feel like I'm a new kid with like a new idea in the cage as a coach. Like, all right, guys, bring it in. Let's talk. I gotta tell you this. I gotta tell you. You know, and it's exciting for me. I'm having fun.
That sounds like me and my new pulsing thing here. I'm just like, oh my god!
I can't wait to tell all
Hurry
kids.
Up,
right?
Get in the door here. We're gonna start pulsing.
I can't wait to tell. Right, and that's what makes it. You know, that's what makes coaching great, because especially for us, like I know you're a researcher, and I actually ordered that book too. I should get it today. Dr. McGill.
Oh, yeah.
I did order the book yesterday, and I'm gonna get it today, and I'll probably knock it out this weekend. Well, I don't know how big the book is. But
I'm on my third time through. I'm still digesting.
Yeah. So
yeah,
I'm excited about that. But you know, any little thing you could learn. You could just learn about one thing, you know, and then that changes everything. That one little thing changes everything sometimes. So what else you got on your mind? Oh, so I had a question I want to ask you, but go ahead. Tell me what's on your mind, and we'll go into my question.
No, I think we hit a couple high points today here. Next time we talk, I'll have. Right now, I probably got a sample size of 20 or 25. I'll have a sample size of 50 or 100. So I'll know if I feel really, really great or how I feel about this whole new adventure I'm kind of focusing on with my kids. My early returns looks pretty good. I guess it's something I hope,
Hmm.
I always felt was important. But now that I'm able to really put numbers on it, and I got a couple new, you say drills or these are kind of exercises that help you with it. Yeah, feeling good. And I think my kids are really going to benefit from it.
That's good.
And in the end, that's what it's all about, right?
That is. It is what it's all about. So let's get together again in a couple of weeks, if you're
Yeah,
okay.
after we get a couple of these college weekends, I think NC State and Georgia are playing right now, and I'm going to have
You
to
know.
go
You
watch
know what's
my Georgia
funny?
people.
It
Yeah.
was. You know what's funny? Um, it's hard, and we talked about this the other day. It's hard for me to watch preseason softball. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm excited about that they're back, but I like mid-season college softball because I feel like everybody's like a little sharper.
Well,
The hitters are more on time. The pitchers have more control. I mean, like I'm
and
not. I mean,
the coaches, what they saw in fall and spring, now they're seeing the real you in a game, and not against your teammates. It's in a game, and there's people in the stadium. So, yeah, the coaches probably get better too.
yeah, I think you figure out what you got.
Yeah,
It's just more the entertainment value for how I like to watch sports. And to be honest, women's fast pitch softball is probably the only sport I watch. I don't watch football. I don't watch anything. I've been watching women's college basketball lately because I like the characters. There's some characters. It's fun. It's
yeah,
entertaining. The entertainment value is really good. So for me, if I'm gonna take time out of my day, sit down, cut on the TV. Obviously, I'll watch games if I have kids on the team that are my kids. I'm gonna watch obviously.
sure, yeah,
Or if I have friends that coach and I just want to check in on them and see how their teams are doing, I'll watch. And that's why I'm watching. There's always for me, there's a why I'm watching. But yeah, I'm excited for the season to see what holds. I think because it seems like 70 has become the new 65, or 65 has become the new 60. What would you say? Is 65 the new 60?
You know what? I just talked about that this morning with another group that I was speaking with. It's now if you're not throwing 65, you're not going to get a lot of
Because
big D ones that are
it used to
interested
be
in you.
60. Remember when it was 60?
Used to be. Oh goodness, yeah.
Remember, it's like, oh, you throw 60. Oh, and now it's like 60. That's the change up.
Yeah, I remember
People throw 60.
about 15 years ago, there was a study done on college pitchers, and the average speed of a college pitcher was 58.
You see that? You see
Yeah, can
that?
you imagine? Yeah. So you're 58 now. Yeah, you could pitch in college, but it probably is not going to be at Florida or Alabama
I
or
mean, I think
Oklahoma.
your change up can be 50, can be 58.
Yeah, that's right.
Your change up.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
it's interesting how we're seeing the game evolve, and because of that, because of that, we have to be so much better visually. And next time we talk, we got to talk about eyeballs because I'm telling you right now, guys, after all this physical stuff that we're good at,
yeah,
it means nothing if you don't got the eyeballs.
yeah. I can talk a little bit on eyeballs too. Yep,
Like
absolutely.
you don't who are you without eyeballs?
Yeah,
You just getting stronger so you can miss faster. And you can miss and you can miss harder.
yeah,
That's all you're doing. You're just missing harder.
yeah,
So, we got to get into that. But yeah, I'll let you
yeah.
go. I mean, this was great. I think we got enough for people that have a 45-minute car ride. They're gonna get a little bit. If you got a 45-minute, 50-minute car ride, you could ride with us.
Join us. Yeah. All right. Well, Rob, great. Good talking again, and can't hardly wait for the next one.
Yep. So first time listeners, if you just first time you listening to us, how do you get in touch with Rick Pauly?
Well, PaulyGirlFastPitch.com. Go to the website, see what we're all about, and if you want to learn anything about pitching, even on the vision side, like you said, but yeah, if you want to just learn how to throw the basic fastball, we got that. You want to know how to throw 7 or 8 different movement pitches, we got that. You want to know how to pitch call, how to pick pitches, how to start a pitching business. It's all there.
Oh, that's good. So when can we expect, I'm going to put you on the spot now. When can we expect more from Rick Pauly in the social media posts and content?
Well, as soon as my friend Rob Cruz does that educational thing that he promised me today.
I'm definitely gonna. We got to get Rick going, guys. We got to get him going.
We really do,
because he has so much, and I just, I think we got to get it out there. We got to get some of that free content and get these people and start changing the game at large and get it going. So we're gonna get Rick going on that. And I promise you, he'll be up and running pretty soon. We're going to get him going.
Let's do it. All right. I'm all for it.
Have a good one.
All right, Rob. Take care, man.
All right, take care.